Hi, my name is Steve Stine from guitarzoom. You might hear people say things like you need to know all of your music theory and you need to know all of your scales to be able to solo effectively, and that's not entirely true. Although those elements certainly bring your playing to new levels and can help immensely in your playing for future, that doesn't mean you can't have some fun in the process by doing some cool things that you might not exactly understand. What I want to do is I want to show you some cool things that you can do with your hard rock and your metal playing. Even though you might not understand everything about it, you're going to be able to apply it right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a lick here. It's a diminished lick that I'm going to do in the key of E. Okay, so here's what the lick looks like. Okay, one more time. Okay, it's a really simple and effective way of being able to add something that's colorful and different than like standard pentatonic and things into your playing. And even though you might not understand everything about it, it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that you can add it and make your playing sound, more interesting, more colorful. So what I'm doing here is I'm starting off on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string with my 1st finger. And then I'm going to the pinky of the 5th string, or excuse me, the 5th fret of the 3rd string. So I'm doing a hammer on. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip, what's called string skipping. I'm going to skip over to the 1st string, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pluck the 2, and then I'm going to have the 5 as well. So it's just creating a square here. You hear a lot of old school metal guys, and you hear a lot of new metal guys that will use this kind of stuff in their playing. And so what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how it works with the left hand, and then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about what I'm doing with the right hand. So what's cool about this is if you were in the key of E, which a lot of hard rock and metal stuff is, you would simply look at the 2nd fret here. So if you think about it, you're visualizing your E minor chord. And on this string right here on the 3rd string, it would be open. Well, we're moving up 2 frets higher from that open spot. Okay, and that's where I'm going to start my diminished run here. So I have those, and again, we'll talk about the picking and the hammer-ons and pull-offs and stuff as well, but let's just take a look at this, the shape. So I'm going 2 to 5 on the 3rd string and on the 1st string. Then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to move up, and I'm going to do the exact same shape on the 5th to the 8th fret. Then I'm going to move up, and I'm going to connect onto the pinky each time. I'm moving up, and now I'm going to be on the 8th to the 11th fret. Then I'm going to move up again to 11 and 14, 14 to 17, 17 to 20, and then 20 to 23. Okay? So it's a really cool and easy way of visualizing something on your fretboard. You're just doing 4 fret blocks, 2 to 5, 5 to 8, 8 to 11, 11 to 14, 14 to 17, 17 to 20, and then, or 21, excuse me, and then 20 to 23, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build that a little bit, and I'm going to show you how you can do it in different chords or different keys as well. Okay, so here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play up this shape right here, and then I'm going to play down the next one. So what I'm going to do is explain to you a little bit about how I am picking this, and then I'm going to give you some other suggestions of things that you could do on your own. Because you certainly don't have to do it exactly the same way I do it. You just need to find what's most comfortable for you. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a hammer on, and then on the next string I'm going to pick this one, and then I'm going to pick this one. So I'm going down pick, and then when I go to the 1st string I go down and up with my right hand. Down, hammer, down, up. Now after I do that upstroke, I'm going to slide up to the 8th fret. And then I'm going to do a pull-off back to the 5. Okay, then I'm going to head back to the 3rd string, which is 8 and 5 as well. And right there, what I'm going to do is pluck that 8, and I'm doing that with an upstroke, and then I'm doing a pull-off back to the 5. So I have a pick, hammer, down, up, slide, pull off to 5, and then I do an upstroke here, and then do a pull off. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially repeat that exact same thing over and over and over as I move across these blocks. So the main thing is that I get comfortable being able to do a couple of things here. Obviously, being able to move my hand from the 3rd string to the 1st string, being able to slide up, right? The second thing is I need to try and keep these strings as quiet as humanly possible as I play. So you'll notice what I'm doing is I'm deadening out the strings up here as I play. I'm not leaving my hand exposed. I'm touching those strings so they don't start vibrating on me. As I play, I start touching more of the strings. Once I head to the 1st string with my left hand, I start touching more of the strings with my right hand to keep everything quiet. Okay? The general rule is whatever string is vibrating is the only string that should be exposed. Otherwise, all the other strings should be deadened either with your left hand or your right hand. So when I first start playing, I'm on the 3rd string. I'm pressing on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string there. I'm deadening the strings underneath with my index finger by lightly touching those, and everything else I'm touching with my right hand to deaden those. And then as I move down to that 1st string, then I start moving down just a little bit with my right hand to deaden out those strings. Okay, so that's what my left hand has to deal with. My right hand then is simply creating a picking pattern that's comfortable. Now, there are many things that you could do as far as picking and hammering and pulling and that sort of thing. You could do the minimalistic element, which is simply plucking once. Every time you move to a new string, you simply pluck one time to begin the vibration of the string. So I could simply do something like this. I could pluck this one and do a hammer-on. Then I could go to this string and just pluck it once and do a hammer-on, slide, pull-off. And that would be perfectly fine. Okay? So what I want you to understand is as you're watching this, you don't have to do everything exactly the same way I do it. If there's something that's a little bit easier for you because of the way you've been practicing or the kinds of techniques that you've learned, don't feel bad about that. The goal is to be able to sell whatever it is that you're doing on the guitar to make it sound authentic, to make it sound real and natural. So for instance, if you find that you'd rather use a certain finger instead of what I'm doing, don't stress over it. It's perfectly fine. So I've got down, hammer, and then down, up, slide, pull off, and then an upstroke, and then a pull off. Now, to get to the next one, I'm going to slide up to 8, and I'm going to continue on. All right, so it looks like this. So what happens is, when I move from the 1st block to the 2nd block, I've just shown you how I do that, but now I got to get from the 2nd block to the 3rd block. The only thing that's changing is, because I've already picked the 3rd string with that upstroke right here, and then the slide, I'm not picking again. I'm just sliding up and continuing on. So in that case, I'm using that minimalistic idea of less picking, right? So I'm picking it down to get the thing started, hammering, and then a down up here, slide, pull off, upstroke here, pull off, slide, hammer, and then here I'm going to go down, up, slide, and I'm just repeating the same sequence. So what I want to do is I want to play it nice and slow for you right now so you can see how this works. So I have... Now, what I want to show you is as I get into those smaller frets, if I was standing up and playing, of course, it becomes even harder to do. As I get to those smaller frets, I shift from my pinky to my 3rd finger. So I'm going to show you how I would do that, okay? So let me play it again and let me show you where the shift is. So right in that area, when I get to the 15th to the 20th fret, I'm going to start making a shift into using my 3rd finger instead of my pinky simply because it feels more comfortable for me. If you had started with your 1st and your 3rd finger, you could do it all the way across. If you like the feel of using your pinky all the way across, again, it's perfectly fine. I just want to show you what it is that I do and how I have to readjust things to make it comfortable for myself. So right around here, right around when I go from 14 to 17, that's where I'm going to make the shift. Watch this. Right there. Now, if I don't shift right there, what I have a tendency of doing, if I was to come off that using my first and pinky like I was just doing, the shift would happen right here, because that's my next opportunity to get off my third finger and my pinky and get to my third finger. So as I'm playing these sorts of things, I have a couple of different avenues that I can adjust as needed to make things sound or to make things feel comfortable for myself. And I like those sorts of things because they're more natural to me. So it's not like if I was playing this lick, for instance, do I have to play the entire sequence? And the answer is, of course not. I could play just a couple of blocks. I don't have to start with this block down here. You know, I could be playing something in E, and then all of a sudden, I just run one of those in there to make it sound more interesting. So I might not use the entire sequence. And as a result of that, I may not have a certain space where I'm going to be shifting from this finger to this finger or something like that. But what I want you to understand is, if I was coming down like this, and now I was going to shift, that's where I would go to my third finger, because it makes more sense to me. So if I was on my way this direction, it'd be the next block that I would shift into my third finger. If I didn't shift into my third finger right there, or if I didn't shift off my pinky, however you want to think of it, I would need my pinky to do that slide, and I'd do my pull off, and then I would shift into my third finger. So my point is, without getting too confusing on that, is that gives you a couple of different options of ways of shifting if you need to. Like me, if you need to shift from that pinky into that third finger because they get too small, you could shift on the way up meaning this direction, right? Or you could shift on the way down. So there's different ways that you could do that. I think the most comfortable way for me would be to do the 14-17 shift. So when I'm going like this, right here, right there is where I would normally do it, but it kind of depends, okay? So now we've got a really cool diminished run, which is avoiding the E at this point. There's no E in here. So as we play this, we want to resolve it one fret higher. Now I've got 24 frets on here, so I can reach that. If you don't, you might have to readjust. You might not be able to get all the way into that last block, right, if you only have 22 frets. So if you have 23 frets, or probably 21 to 22. So if you have 21, you're kind of stuck. 22, you're kind of stuck. But you know, I could always bend up, which sounds kind of cool too. I can bend up a half step. You know, if you could only get it to 17 and 20 right there without doing another one, you might have to end it right there. So then what I would need to do is I'd need to think, okay, well, what do I want to do to end this? Maybe I'm going to go to the note E. So if I did this, if you only had 21 or 22 frets, and I could bend that up. This is creating this note, which is E. So that would be an easy way to get out of that. Right? And now I'll do it with the shift of my finger. Okay? So if you didn't have enough frets, you could certainly do something like that. And then bend up my half step if I have 24 frets. So that's a really cool way of being able to implement a diminished idea into your hard rock, your metal playing. It doesn't require a lot of like sweeping techniques because we're not using all the strings. We're actually string skipping over the top. So it enables us to use more hammer-on and pull-off ideas to make it a little bit easier for us. And please remember, just because you're using hammer-ons and pull-offs doesn't mean that it's less effective than picking everything, because it's not. It's just everybody's individual wants and effective output in their playing is what you're really ideally looking for. So hopefully that makes sense. And I hope that you can use that right away in your playing. Find some really cool things that you can do. It's going to sound a bit outside, and it's supposed to. If you want to sound, right in the box, you use things like E minor pentatonic, and it's going to sound great. These are things that shake up that color. It makes something a little more interesting and a little more unique, so you're not always doing the same thing. And again, even though we don't understand why the diminished is working or what a diminished might be, it's still something that you can use. If you decide you want to further study that, that's no problem either. But right now, let's take a look at that. And what we'll do next time is we're going to take this and we're going to bump it up to the next level. I'm going to show you something even more bizarre that you can use in your hard rock and your metal playing. So take care and have a great day.